Honestly, it's not even so much the Fox stuff, because I guess from that angle, it's just kind of like the bite the hand that feeds. But what really fucking pisses me off and has completely destroyed any faith I used to have in Glenn Greenwald, because I too, like most other lefties, was a big fan of Glenn Greenwald. Like I grew up reading a lot of those articles, you know, and just being like, holy shit, yeah, the imperialism of the United States, its thirst cannot be quenched. Yeah, you go, Glenn, you glow. Sorry, you go, like go get him. Is his defense of Tucker Carlson. Okay, let's rip into Greenwald and then move on, because this Greenwald data is pretty funny.
Hey everyone, and welcome to another discussion on The Rational National. As you'll see, I spoke with journalist Owen Higgins a couple days ago on his new piece about Glenn Greenwald.
Oh my.
Does an analysis on his movement towards the right over the past few years. So, you know, a lot of people aren't on Twitter. They aren't really always up to date on who people are. So I think for many people, this may be eye-opening. But Greenwald is somebody that, you know, a lot of us that are in this work have respected because of the great work that he has done in the past, as Owen Higgins will discuss in this interview. But the movement towards the right in defending Fox News and going on there just to be on their side and spout what they're spouting is really bizarre. So,
you know what's fascinating about this is that's a really true way of looking at it. Every single one of you who's terminally online, like myself, has pretty much probably been seeing like the Glenn Greenwald heel turn, or like bootlicking turn, whatever you want to call it, that has happened so dramatically, especially both on like on his Substack, on his Rumble, on his Twitter account, where he's consistently saying a lot of things that would be appreciated at the very least, if not loved by right-wingers, by conservatives, all the way to far-righters, defending Tucker Carlson constantly, calling Tucker Carlson a socialist, like completely doing history revisionism when it comes to speaking about Tucker Carlson and his very, very strong and credible ties to speaking about issues like the Great Replacement Theory, that he is a well-respected member of the media as seen in the eyes of other prominent white nationalists, stuff like that. But if you've been online, and if you've been terminally online, you've been seeing this, and you've probably been like, oh, fuck you. Another one, oh, fuck you. Like, all of a sudden, Glenn Greenwald posts that study that shows that there's now an increase in the amount of people who identify as non-binary, as well as the amount of increase in the people who identify as bisexual or gay, than there ever was before, which I would submit has a large part to do to the culture being a lot safer now for people to admit or talk about those things, in opposition to what would be the right-wing or conservative conspiracy theory that it has something to do with ideology, than it has something to do with people getting converted to these kind of things. But you see him post it and then just being like, I'm just asking questions, but it does seem very unusual that there is an increase in this, and I just don't see why there's so many more they thems, right? Question mark, question mark.
Owen Higgins has some actual data to back this up. He has an analysis on this. I'll link to his piece and his Twitter bio as well below the video, so you can check that out and read through it all if you want. But here is the interview now with Owen Higgins on his piece about Glenn Greenwald. I'm joined now by journalist Owen Higgins. Owen, welcome to the show.
David, thanks for having me.
So you have a new piece out titled Company Man, the Data Behind Glenn Greenwald's Twitter Loyalty to Fox News. I'll link to it below this video on YouTube. Now, before we get deep into this, for those that don't know who Glenn Greenwald is or who he was, can you start by giving people sort of a summary of what Glenn Greenwald was known for prior to making this most recent turn?
Good call.
Yeah. Greenwald began his career in 2006 as I would say, somewhat libertarian left blogger who opposed the excesses of the Bush security state. He was a really essential voice in a lot of ways at the time, you know, going against the kind of the surveillance and, you know, the TSA and the wars. And I mean, you know, he kind of ran the gamut on that stuff. He became a writer for Salon and The Guardian, and in I believe 2013 he helped publish the Snowden documents. Edward Snowden, like, you know, changed the world for the better. I would argue probably one of, if not the biggest journalistic efforts of my lifetime. You know, completely upended the world order in a lot of ways by revealing the extent of U.S. involvement in spying not only on citizens but on world leaders and people around the world and around the country. Since And then he also
It is an Irish
he founded
spelling, right?
Intercept,
Yeah.
the left-leaning investigative reporting website that's been going strong for I think 7 years at this point. Full disclosure, I have written for them on numerous occasions. And he left them in October 2020 over a disagreement on the editing process for a story that he was writing on Hunter Biden and the Hunter Biden laptop, which was at the time that it happened was, it was kind of unclear on how credible the information was.
That's the origin story. That's going to be the best part, where you can like track down the pivot. It's going to be Hunter Biden's cock. Man, that penis strikes again. It's like, it's been the downfall of so many people. We've seen it like be responsible for so many different arcs at this point. Well, fair dues.
It was being spread by Rudy Giuliani. It was in the midst of an election. The editors of The Intercept, and so I wrote about this for fairness and accuracy in reporting. I talked to Greenwald over the phone for over an hour in an exclusive interview about this.
Are you going to talk about the Q and GG podcast? We listened to some of it. It was fucking amazing. I hope, okay, I was the first to say that I hated the idea. I was going to talk to Q personally and be like, what the fuck are you doing? But not tell him what to do, obviously, because no one should tell anyone else what to do. It's just like, it's your career. Same thing happens to me all the time. When it's someone I respect and they respect me, or we have a friendship or working relationship, we'll DM each other and we'll, like, instead of putting each other on blast, right? Like, Mildred has come at me for things that have been very fair, and, I will always give her credit for doing that. It's pretty amazing, because that way it's not just on blast on there creating drama for the drama's sake. It's more like, hey, by the way. But man, was I pleasantly surprised. That podcast is just Glenn Greenwald getting served for about an hour, having to leave his little new echo chamber that he's made for himself with basically the Jimmy Dore-esque, let's align ourselves with the Boogaloo Boys / Tucker Carlson's actually a socialist because he doesn't like Amazon, and that's the requirement as per this new definition I've invented in my own brain kind of shit. And just have someone consistently be like, no, you're wrong. What are you talking about? No, that's just not true. No, once again, wrong. No, I saw the complete opposite of that. Okay, well, here is something that'll prove. Like, it was cathartic. I doubt every episode is gonna be like that, to be honest. If you want to find it, just go to Q's Twitter account. It's like at Andre Domies. But yeah, I doubt every week's gonna be like that, because Glenn is an egomaniac above all things, right? I can't see Glenn Greenwald doing a podcast on a regular basis where someone who's just so much more infinitely educated on the topics they're talking about, which happens to be Q, just school him. Like, just school him. And I was just sitting there, I was like, oh my god, this is fucking awesome. I kind of wanted to re-listen to that whole episode.
Roger Hodge and Betsy Reed, who are editors of The Intercept, as well as a number of other people involved tangentially on background. And essentially what happened was, Greenwald believed in this story. They wanted him to soften the
I've seen
language,
Mildred give you flack
down.
on Twitter. Glad as it is. Yeah.
He quit. He joined Substack. And
I quite cherish their friendship.
He's been appearing more on Fox News, and his politics have really taken a right-wing partisan turn.
Oh, hell yeah, they have.
Yeah, and just to briefly on the Hunter Biden stuff, for me, this really was, I guess, the eye-opening moment. I mean, but before then, it was obvious. It was clear that Greenwald had been moving more to the right in some of his positions, but at least publicly. But in the middle of an election, like, is Hunter Biden really the most important? I think this is really, for me, what is so weird about Greenwald is the things he focuses on compared to what he used to focus on, like the surveillance state, these huge issues. And now Hunter Biden's laptop, Joe Biden's son, like, who cares? This is it doesn't matter. But this is where we get into your research. So a lot of people, may recognize Greenwald from the great work that he's done in the past, but a lot of people, aren't on Twitter. I don't think are really aware of this obvious turn that he has made. What has your research on this shown? What did you find?
Yeah, so Greenwald has 1.7 million Twitter followers. He posts
significant.
A lot. I would say he posts up to 100 times a day. If he's arguing with somebody, he fights with people all the time on there. It is an essential part of his platform, his Twitter and his use of it. He is using Substack. He is using the video service Rumble. He's using the podcast service Callin. These are all deals he has with different VC investors. Well, I'm sorry, that's a misstatement. He doesn't have a deal with the investors. He has a deal with the companies that come after they get the investments. which makes sense because he's a big name and you would want to have him. But his Twitter account is certainly where he has the largest reach and influence. So I think that his behavior on that website is very important to pay attention to, and it is very relevant because he is one of the, I would say he's one of the most famous journalists in the world, and so what he says matters. So since leaving The Intercept, since joining Substack, Greenwald has also started to appear on Fox News with even more frequency than before.
So they've got, not only that, so they've got Greenwald appearing on Substack on a regular basis. They've also got a whole bunch of them joining Rumble simultaneously. They've got this new podcast network that they're trying to start and formulate that they're also going. It seems like it's really unfortunate because like Higgins could be spending his time working on a lot of other serious aspects of the right to far right instead of having to be concerned about policing people who are considered to be radical or prominent leftist journalists at the same time, right?
Before. Now he's always been, or for about a year and a half, he's been appearing on the Tucker Carlson show quite often, something that he's frequently asked to explain because of Carlson's far right, extreme racist and bigoted views on any number of subjects, including homosexuality and trans identity and all, even outside of race. I mean, this guy is a through and through bigot. But Greenwald appears on there quite frequently. They're very friendly. He defends Carlson all the time. He also tweets very positively about Fox News, including a lot of the time, when he's defending his positions on it, but also with increasing frequency, he is doing it just in general, just to say, hey, check out this person who's going to be on Fox, or look at Fox's ratings, isn't that great? So all that kind of stuff. So one thing that he frequently says is that he is a independent journalist and he just tells the truth and he just goes after whoever. So I felt like that wasn't true, even though Glenn has had me blocked for a long time, but I had a feeling that wasn't true. So I went through his tweets since September 2016 to see how his attitude to the network has changed. Now, the thing is that no matter how awful MSNBC and CNN are, and I should say that I pretty much completely agree with all of Greenwald's attacks on MSNBC and CNN, which I consider to be equally bad as Fox, just in a different way. I think they're absolutely horrible. So I think he's completely right about that. But same. He doesn't subject Fox to the same scrutiny. So I went through this and I found that since late 2020 and certainly since 2021, he has tweeted almost exclusively positively about Fox. There was, I think,
that is so striking.
April 30th, 2020, there have only been 2 tweets that were critical. They were in mid-May 2021, and they were both about Fox's coverage of the Israel-Palestine conflict, which, by the way, he's completely right about. Yes, like that is like they should be covering it at a bare minimum.
That's so striking.
With a little bit more of a focus on the voices of the Palestinians. But they don't, obviously, because they're a far-right network, which Greenwald knows. I mean, this is the frustrating thing, is that he knows this, but he just won't say it for obvious reasons. So I went through it, and I just found that, that these spikes happened, especially come 2021. And then I got Media Matters for America sent me a list of 105 appearances that he had made. I plugged a couple in that I had found because they didn't have any on the weekends or, prior to October 2017. And then what I found was that his appearances line up with his positive tweets almost on a one-to-one basis, especially once you hit 2021. Once you hit 2021, the spikes are pretty much like in line with each other. Wow. And so just, this isn't groundbreaking in the sense that it's not like anybody didn't know that this was the case, but it is striking to see the data laid out in the graph.
Yeah, I think
they aren't starting it. They were all offered deals. From David Sachs, the founder, today is the public launch of Colin, the first app to offer a new experience we call social podcasting. We're also announcing our $12 million series, a co-led by Sequel Capital and Goldcrest Capital, along with my firm, Craft Ventures, which incubated the company. Jesus. So many venture capitals going on here. Why is it never into something useful, Something we could all use. Like the infinite cantaloupe machine. That would be better than whatever Colin's going to be. Is now shilling Bitcoin? Fuck yes. The implications of Bitcoin technology beyond just being a currency, and especially its potential of decentralized power, enable genuine privacy, and preventing corporate and state control of information. It is in its infancy stage, but it's coming. And what is this for? Purchasing beer with Bitcoin in El Salvador. Every serious tech person I know, one who bought Bitcoin in its infancy, says the potential that it might have had theoretically has been completely eliminated. It's now a total scam. So the graph was done by Higgins, and he's actually done in the same article that he's published that has basically he includes the mythology. So he'll tell you the mythology, what he used to do it, how he determined the ratio of posts when they were made. He cross-collaborated his information, as he's told you right here, with Media Matters for America, which is basically recorded and kept track of his hundreds of media appearances on Fox. And there's a very good reason all of this is happening, besides obviously, the potential for some of his messaging, I guess, to be louder, is money. It's money. Like, I don't think Glenn Greenwald is a 100% grifter, like some people like to imply. Some people like implying that Glenn Greenwald is just doing everything that he does for cash. I don't think that's it, but I think that is a very large part of it. I think what he gets to do is he gets to be on Fox News, which again regurgitates him on a very giant mainstream platform that's watched not only by millions of Americans, but just by millions of humans around the world. If he can get fucking 25, 30, 50, 100 appearances on Fox, fuck yes, he's going to be tweeting positively about that network. He's going to keep feeding the hand that feeds him, right? That's going to go back and forth. That in turn is also going to propel his name and his stardom to be able to make all these articles. And in these articles, he's always very selective to kind of keep the same themes that you've always known and loved about Glenn Greenwald, which is like, well, I don't like increased government presence and authority. I don't like that. I don't like, these surveillance systems and big tech companies operating in the way they are. But I'm just going to come at it from a now slightly to very obvious and self-evident conservative angle. And hey, wouldn't you know, they're invading Project Veritas. Thought Project Veritas happened to be like a whole bunch of credible journalists, and this is starting this very scary precedent. This is basically us operating in the way that we find a lot of the countries that we like to shit on, such as Venezuela. We assume that's how they operate there, but now we're doing it, right? Yeah, Veritas is Latin for truth. How could they lie?
What's really incredible about it is just the obvious shift. And, it's one thing if he was honest about his positions or his honest about, his worldview. I mean, if he came out and just said, yeah, I'm a conservative, whatever, then it wouldn't be that much of a deal. But it's the fact that he had the buildup of this fantastic reporting that he has in the past and is sort of riding off that to now sell people on Fox News. And, oftentimes people come back and say, well, he goes on Fox News to try and make the argument, to try and educate the viewers of Fox News into a different perspective, like Bernie Sanders did, during his town hall in 2020. But is that what Greenwald's doing? Like when he's on Tucker, like what have you noticed from his appearances on Fox News? Is he actually challenging Tucker, or is he doing something else?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't seen any challenge to Tucker from Greenwald. I mean, I'm sure that, maybe he does, but I haven't really seen it. They did an interview when Greenwald was still at The Intercept, I think in 2017, 2018, where Greenwald pushed him on some of his views. But and you can find that at The Intercept, and also Greenwald has a couple of clips from it on a Medium post that he did on it. But yeah, I mean, obviously, and I say this in the article, my methodology is subjective. I'm not going to pretend that I had some like special formula to decide what was a negative and a positive tweet. But I feel confident about my conclusions and about how I rated them. And I just don't think that you can possibly say that his social media posting or his appearances have been in any way critical of Fox in any way whatsoever. And in fact, especially in the latter half so far, 2021, I mean, they've been like glowing to the point of like, that's what you say when you're really trying to make a great.
Honestly, it's not even so much the Fox stuff, because I guess from that angle, it's just kind of like the bite the hand that feeds. But what really fucking pisses me off and has completely destroyed any faith I used to have in Glenn Greenwald, because I too, like most other lefties, was a big fan of Glenn Greenwald. Like I grew up reading a lot of those articles, and just being like, holy shit, yeah, the imperialism of the United States, its thirst cannot be quenched. Yeah, fucking, you go, Glenn, you glow. You go, like go get him. is his fucking defense of Tucker Carlson in like almost all things, from the whole thing like being like it is completely off base to call him a white supremacist. For anyone to have done that, shame on you, because he's not. He's denounced white supremacy before, all the way into modern day, like being his spin doctor for free. Like yesterday I just saw a post by him where it's like Tucker Carlson has always had an appropriate stance on Black Lives Matter, in that so that he supports it, and yet feels that people should still be following rules and does not need to blah blah blah. And you're like, no, he didn't. I was like, in 2 seconds, google.com, boom, hey Glenn, here's a quote of Tucker Carlson. Black Lives Matter is a national embarrassment. It was like the third hit that popped up. Oh, here's another one where he's comparing the leaders to being like postmodern neo-Marxists who are trying to destroy society and all this other shit. Like, you're just lying. I mean, it's just like, it's absolutely absurd and ludicrous to listen to someone talk about like, well, he's a socialist. He hates Amazon, so he hates Walmart, so socialist. He doesn't like waiting in line at the airport, so he's a socialist, right? That's what socialism is.
Great impression on someone, like that's the kind of stuff that he's doing at this point. I mean, like you can't even pretend now that there's that there's anything else going on.
Yeah, and he's continuing to still criticize MSNBC and CNN, which is good, as you said. I agree with those criticisms, but to criticize he's now shifted from basically criticizing the corporate media to criticizing the liberal corporate media, as if
methodology,
that's
not
the only
methodology.
issue.
Oh fuck,
there
I
isn't
fucked
an
up
issue
there.
with Fox News.
It's okay.
To try and play this game, it's just so disingenuous, and it makes it hard to take him seriously. If he were to do some good reporting on something, it's hard to take that seriously now because of this persona that he's taken on. It's just really, I don't know, it's really bizarre. Now,
wonder how Michael Brooks would feel. They were friends, but I think he would have done a respectful call-out segment by now. Honestly, I'm not, and please catch me if I do this, someone who's going to do speculation on what someone like Michael, I'm literally wearing a Michael Brooks t-shirt, but like, yeah, I'm not someone who likes to do speculation on what Michael Brooks would have done or not done in a case, and I've kind of always found it really yucky. And this is not on you, by the way, Chatter. This is just like what I've seen people, like big personalities do online. Like Anna was yelling at Jimmy Dore, and then Jimmy Dore was like, Michael Brooks would have been absolutely disgusted by you, and things like that. And you're just like, it's just to try and prove a point by invoking the dead when they can't speak for themselves. I mean, Michael Brooks was friends with Glenn. And I think he would have had a very hard time watching what was going down here before doing anything about it,
I know you don't get into motivation. We don't know what the motivation is, but do you speculate? Like, is there any idea as to why he's doing this? Is it because he lost that Intercept money, now he's trying to make it back in a different way? Like, do you have any idea as to what's going on here?
I mean, to be clear, Greenwald has said repeatedly that he doesn't get paid for his appearances on Fox News, and I take him at his word on that. I think that there's no reason to think that he's not telling the truth about that.
Well, yeah, but I'm okay. I hope he follows up with this. By being on Fox News, you are getting millions of dollars in free advertisement. Like, there's millions of humans who are going to watch you. That's very, very, very expensive. Like, that was one of the smartest things Donald Trump did, was he always consistently made himself newsworthy. Like, he used the presidency and like the eyes of the world to get like, probably billions of dollars in untold ad revenue by just getting airtime. Do you remember how many times we would watch something where all it would show would be the American flags, like an unseemly amount of them? I mean, it was like an American flag orgy. You'd be like, how the fuck do you squish that many American flags into a single shot? But at either rate, you just stand there and it's like, anytime now, Michelle, apparently we are being told the president is going to be making an announcement on the economy. He said it could be anywhere between now and the next 3 hours. And since we know he'll say something wild and zany, we're going to have to keep filming this while talking about nonsense. And that's what we're going to be paid to do as we wait for the president to arrive. Again, could be at any time. We'll find out.
However,
thanks,
when he
Hagbard.
appears on Fox News,
check it out.
His Substack is promoted. His Substack relies on subscriptions. And so I think it's disingenuous to say that there's no financial incentive for him to appear on Fox News. Whether or not that's the motivation, I mean, maybe he just decided that Fox News was great and that all of his previous criticisms basically are no longer valid. And that, I mean, to me, the most disingenuous part of this is that he defends this stuff by saying that because Democrats control both houses of Congress and the White House and have MSNBC and CNN, then Fox is really the underdog. Like they are representing like the underdog. and then he says this, and then within hours or days, he posts these rating charts that show that Fox News dominates cable news. Dominates. I mean, it's not even close.
Yeah.
Like they are like the top. They are most of, if not all of, the top 10 or 20 every month.
I mean, I have a theory that's based on zero science that the median age of people who watch Fox skew much older, right? I think they've captured the 60-plus demographic. So people who stay home and watch a lot of television, obviously, would be a very lucrative demographic to have. But for the other networks, for everyone who's basically a lib who wants to watch either MSNBC or CNN, everything younger than that, I mean, even if you start hitting millennials, like millennials and below don't watch cable television. They watch it if it's on, like, in the background at their parents' place, or just on in a hotel or something like that. But, like, no one I know in my age demographic. This is based on just anecdotes, by the way. In chat, you can correct me. If a whole bunch of Zoomers are like, oh, we actually watch Pumpkin Phone. It's the only way to get your news. Like, that's just kind of been my experience, you know? Here, to make this more exciting for all of you, I'll add music.
So I don't know how you can possibly say that the cable network that has this much control over the zeitgeist and the way that cable news media is being consumed is somehow the underdog, or that you're somehow like bucking convention by speaking positively about them exclusively. But that is what he's saying. I mean, he obviously hasn't responded. I mean, as of right now, as far as I've seen, has not responded directly to my article. But I did notice that this morning he posted something. It was like a quote by Chomsky saying that he doesn't write about Fox News because there's no point. Liberal media is much more important to write about. And I think I agree with Chomsky. I agree that. But for Greenwald to post that leaves out the fact that Greenwald does regularly write about Fox News. He just doesn't write about it in a critical sense. He writes about it exclusively positively.
Yeah.
So it's honestly quite disappointing to me that someone with such an incredible journalistic career, up until a couple years ago, or up until about a year ago, and someone who's done like such important work and has, again, without question, changed the world for the better with the NSA reporting alone. With the NSA reporting alone, like that is a
don't forget the Brazil coverage
event and piece of reporting that he was a part of, and along with Laura Poitras and Edward Snowden, and I think that is still a good thing. But it is really disappointing to watch him just turn into. I mean, you can go to his Twitter timeline or read his Substack or watch his appearances on Fox. This is just a run-of-the-mill conservative partisan.
Yeah.
And there's nothing more to it. There's no point to even pretend that anything else is going on here.
Yeah.
So
I'm completely in line with you. This is very disappointing. And, I read your piece not as necessarily a tear down of Greenwald, but more as to point out that it's sad that this is who he has now become. And, what was your motivation with the piece? Like, do you hope that he changes? Do you think
nice. I like Rebecca Watson.
Like, did you write it to tear him down, or really was it just sort of like an analysis of who this man now is?
I'm sure that there was.
That's enough.
I mean, I just basically wrote it because I just think that it's completely disingenuous and hypocritical for him to pretend that anything else is going on here.
Yeah.
And I guess in that way, maybe it's a teardown, but I really tried to be as fair as possible. I tried to give him the benefit of the doubt on every single point that I could. And, but yeah, I mean, ultimately, I think with something like this, like my personal feelings on Greenwald aside, the data speaks for itself. The information speaks for itself, and I don't really need to make it be anything else than that.
Yeah, and also, I mean, just anyone that's on Twitter and follows his stuff is aware of the turn. I mean, he actually blocked me recently as well. So, but I have other accounts.
No way.
But then again, like this is right. Just it's sad. But anyways, I'll link to your piece below the video. It's a great read. It really is an analysis on what has happened over the years to Greenwald and what he is, how he puts himself out there. But where can people find you?
You can find me on my Substack, which you'll link to below. It's called The Flashpoint. It's at owenhiggins.substack.com, EOINHIGGINS.substack.com. You can also find me on Twitter at EOINHIGGINS_ and I write for a bunch of places, but all my work gets filtered through there. So
All right, great. And I'll link to all that below the video as well. Thanks again, Owen.
Before we move on, I've had very little interactions with Glenn Greenwald online, just because Glenn Greenwald is, again, got the 1.7 million followers. He probably doesn't see me pop up all the time. But the one thing I did that got him really, really mad is I made this meme, and this meme actually ended up getting shared and circulated by all these like journalists in Brazil who now hate him because of his like right-wing turn, and he flipped out about it and started threatening to sue them for sharing the Glenn Greenwald ivermectin meme. And I was just sitting back the whole time being like, whoa, what is happening? But here it is.
Let's just get Glenn Greenwald. He's smart. Maybe he'll know what the hell's going on. Because I don't, but something is. What do you think is happening?
Well, first of all, on the question of Biden's capabilities, obviously the corporate wing of the media, the liberal corporate wing, is liberal. Their closest relationships in the media are with the CIA, are with the Pentagon, are with the national security state, losing to what is essentially a primitive fighting force. The Democratic voters revere the CIA, revere the FBI. It's Republicans who are skeptical of the deep state.
Ivermectin, that's the current debate. It's a therapeutic that many are saying is somewhat of a miracle drug. Perhaps, we'll see if it works out in treating COVID-19. But even the idea of ivermectin, Glenn, is totally pushed off of social media. I mean, you will get banned, you'll get red flagged. Brett Weinstein, for example, has had his podcast almost kicked off of YouTube for even considering that ivermectin could be a good potential therapeutic. Now, today, it's announced the University of Oxford is testing ivermectin as a possible treatment for COVID-19. I can't help but avoid the idea, Glenn, that these stories are connected. It's all coming back to some sort of mind control. Why can we not even consider possible alternatives to, I guess, what is endorsed by Big Pharma?
I think you put your finger on exactly the point. When you say that some people say this is a potentially effective treatment,
by some people, what you're referring to are medical doctors and scientists, as credentialed as anyone, including Dr. Fauci.
There is a human version of the product, but it's not approved to treat COVID-19 because there's no evidence it helps.
It's for livestock. We're not livestock. Dosage rates for what? This is for livestock. I mean, one tube will treat a 1,250-pound horse.
This will come down to who can deliver the lower propensity and mid-propensity voters.
To our gods, Xander Corvus and Peyton L. Just, we will build a ladder to heaven to deliver you the daily news. To our monarch, Tom Spiker, we are your most humble of clownish jesters. To our lords, Trevor R. and Alexander Thaler, you have our undying fealty. To our knights of the round table, Nate, that one guy, Hagbird Celine, Matthew Scarborough, Stellar Vision, Ariana McCarthy, Daniel Sutton, Ants Are Still Running the World, Coulter Smith, Tom Groh, Val 9000, Jenna Tal, Quiet 185, Anna Loves Riley, Riley and Anna, Omni, Poodlehawk, The Tim Caucus, Multimondi, Trevor Janis, Lemmy 101, Anthropophojack, Saren 42, Chronic to Hemphog, Catherine, Radical Maniac, Ramon Acosta, Incosin, Violent Orchard, Sophie Baby, Political Puppy, Andreas Chiringuito, Zach Christensen, Josh Mickelson, Todd Buckingham, and Todd Lajeunesse. We shall meet you in the tavern, and we raise a drink, and we salute you.